Conlang is short for a constructed language, which is a type of language that was designed by a person or group of people rather than arising naturally. Some famous ones are Esperanto, Tokipona, Klingon, and Navi, but while I love conlangs, there's one thing I always hear. Conlangs are useless. And I really do understand why people say that, but in my opinion, it's just incorrect. I know that's a bold claim to make for languages that are essentially made up, but by utter coincidence, I had the perfect opportunity to prove it. A vacation trip with my parents in Europe. I had 3 months to learn 3 languages, Italian, French, and German, after recently learning Tokipona and committing a month to Esperanto. I'll talk about the trip at the end, but first let's talk about how conlangs helped me learn languages. Number 1. Vocabulary. This won't apply to all conlangs, but the ones I learned specifically draw from real-life languages. Many words from Esperanto carried over, like tago for German's tag, and multa for Italian's multa. There were also some from Tokipona, like waso from French's oiseau, and lape from German's schlafen. While they're obviously not exactly the same, making a connection between them was almost immediate for me, since I already had very similar vocabulary in my head. If I had to learn it based on my English vocabulary, the connection would be much harder to make. Oiseau doesn't really sound like the word bird, but since I already drilled the Tokipona word into my head, it was as easy as learning a cognate. Number 2. Sounds. English is missing many sounds present in other languages, and even if it does have the right sounds, your mouth might not be used to making them consistently. For example, English speakers aren't used to pronouncing pure vowel sounds present in Spanish and Italian, which can sometimes lead to that me gusta español accent, but since I had practiced speaking Tokipona, I was already used to pronouncing vowels the way they're supposed to be in Italian. Esperanto also has the h sound, which isn't present in American English, but it's very common in German. The sound ts is technically in English, but not usually thought of as the sound of a letter, unlike German and Italian, which have that for the letter z, which is why it's pronounced pizza. Even for the new sounds, like the German umlaut vowels, learning how to control my mouth and be aware of the sounds I made helped a lot. Number 3. Learning. Since I basically had experience with learning 2 separate languages, my learning process became very streamlined. I knew what types of grammar rules to look for, what type of websites to visit, and how I could use different apps to my advantage. Learning how to learn is an underrated skill that a lot of people don't even know exists. There's also a lot of evidence to suggest that learning your third language is always easier than your second, and conlangs tend to be easier than natural languages since they're usually more regular. Number 4. Soft skills. This is my general term for the necessary skills not related to the language itself, and they're the things people don't often think about. They include things like figuring out how to form new sentences on the spot, explaining complex ideas with a limited vocabulary, which is helpful while you're still building it, and mentally keeping words separate between different languages. These are all things you'll practice by learning any language and using it with others. With all that in mind, how much did my language learning help in Europe? Well, not that much. The boring truth is that most of the people we talked to in Europe already spoke enough English to communicate, and even for those that didn't, using gestures and Google Translate tended to be faster and easier anyway. Also, 3 months is not enough time to learn 3 languages. Also, knowing a language doesn't fix social anxiety. However, my time learning languages did help, even if it was mostly just reminding my parents what hi and thank you was, and reading ingredient labels faster. There were some nice moments where I cleared up some misunderstandings, but there wasn't a heroic moment where I saved the day by asking someone dove è il bagno and everyone clapped and cheered. So, if I don't have convincing results to show, then why did I feel the need to make this video? It's not like I met anyone in Europe that can speak Tokipona. It's because I feel like the last point is the most important. Number 5. Passion. The truth is, I have studied natural languages before. I spent about 2 years learning Spanish in school to fulfill a requirement, and another year learning French on and off with a friend and Duolingo. I never picked up Spanish again, and eventually lost motivation to learn French. That only changed after I found out about conlangs. They made me interested in languages again, they made me obsessed with languages, and on top of that, they made more sense to me now. What people don't realize is that even if Spanish is a useful language, that doesn't apply to everyone. If you have 0 local Spanish speakers, aren't interested in visiting a Spanish-speaking country, and don't have the motivation to learn Spanish for more than a week, then Spanish would literally be as useful to you as Klingon. If you want to connect to people who enjoy the same media as you, or you want to talk with a community on your obscure social media platform, or you're just curious about learning a language that looks cool to you, then just do it. Most of them are easier and faster to learn than a natural language, and if you ever feel like you're not enjoying it or wasting your time, then you can just stop whenever you want. And all 5 of these things might just carry over. You are allowed to learn languages for fun, because learning languages can just be a hobby. Not all hobbies need to be useful. Sometimes you can just learn things because you enjoy it, and I think people should remember that more often.